Yeah, ma'am, I can complete it by Sunday.
right?
Yeah.
So if you send it by tomorrow, then I can go through it. And are you free anytime on say Saturday evening or Sunday?
On Saturday evening, I have a SAT class from 4 to 6. After that, I will be
Okay.
free.
Okay. So or Sunday anytime?
Ma'am, Sunday, like in the morning, would be fine.
Morning
Or
would
10,
be
11 to 12.
Okay, fine. So I'll you confirm with me, and I'll fix a timing for you so
Okay,
we
ma'am.
can discuss further.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So I think I had told you to do the remaining passages in session 10. Were you able to do?
Yes, ma'am, I was able to do.
Okay. So now you weren't able to check the answers,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Okay. So I'll just go through it and you tell me if your answers are correct or not. Okay. Now this is passage 2, question number 12. You have it in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can just keep telling me the answers you've got. I'll tell you whether it's correct.
Ma'am,
Okay,
option C.
number 12C. No, C would be wrong. Now, if you look at the now here, the option would be D.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, why did you do C? Have you written down your reason? I had told you to write down the reason why you chose a particular option.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am, I didn't write
You
the
haven't
reasons.
written.
No.
Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll just read it. Now, okay. Now for another thing here, like so far we've been doing just questions. Now coming to the dealing with the passage, how to read the passage. So did you read the entire passage or did you at least go skim through it to get an idea of what it was about?
Ma'am, I just read,
Hmm.
the part before the question and after the question.
Okay, fine. That's okay. Okay, now here it is, if you look at the title, it's talking about
The
superstition,
danger
the
of
dangers
superstition.
of superstition.
Yes, ma'am.
So the first three, you can see the first three sentences are questions that have you done this, have you done that, have
Yes,
you
ma'am.
knocked a wood on the door, have you done this. Then it comes to, so these are the different things that, different examples, if you see, yeah. So these
Yes,
are
ma'am.
giving you examples of such superstitions. Most of us realize that these rituals, it's given to you, comma, which are based on ancient and discredited beliefs, but we can't so easily rid our minds of superstitious thinking.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the sentence structure, yeah,
Yes.
there's something amiss about it. Yeah. So it says most of us realize that these rituals, which are based on ancient and discredited beliefs,
Beliefs.
but we can't so easily rid ourselves. So now this which are based on and then but we can't, so it becomes a little redundant. Yeah,
Yes.
some extra words which are not required. So and if you look at C, there's again extra words which are not required,
Yes, ma'am.
which have been based on, now which are based on and which have been based on means the same.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Instead we are just adding a few more words,
Yes.
so we are making it even more redundant than it is. So if we go with rituals are based on, now most of us realize that these rituals are based on ancient and discredited beliefs, but we can't so easily rid of them. So here this but and rituals are based on, that will go together.
Yes, ma'am.
Instead, if we say which are based on, then we won't say but we can't. Which are based on this, on discredited beliefs, can be easily got rid of, would go.
Yes, ma'am.
But here we would go with rituals are based on. Okay, so your option D will be the correct answer.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, number 13 was your answer?
Ma'am, B.
Hmm?
B.
B.
Yes.
Okay, but why did you take B? Okay, did you substitute back and read the, now whenever you go for an option, substitute it back into the sentence and read it,
Yes. Ma'am.
right? So every culture has its own superstitious beliefs. For now, anthropologists and sociologists are beginning to understand why.
Wrong.
That would be wrong, right?
Yeah.
And if you go with so while, that would also be wrong. So and is correct as it is.
No
So
change.
A is your answer.
Yes.
Okay, you can mark the correct answers as you go on.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Question number 14. What's your answer?
Ma'am, contradict.
Contradict. Yes, you are correct. But did you uh, substitute the word and see if it was correct or not?
Yes, ma'am. I did
Okay.
this.
When something strange happens that we can't explain or seems to now collide against what we already believe is absolutely wrong, right?
Yes.
We won't go with to collide against or disengage or go away with,
Okay.
contradict our beliefs would be correct.
Yes.
Contradict what we already believe. Okay, number 15.
Because we.
Because we. Okay, now here it says, since we are willful beings surrounded by other willful
Just a
beings.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at this sentence, have you read the sentence after this?
No, ma'am. I read it before.
Hmm?
Like from where it started. There.
Okay. Now, this is question number 15 and 16 are connected,
Oh.
right? Now, if we look at this, since we are willful beings surrounded by other willful beings, and every conscious moment of our lives is filled with a sense of agency, that is intentional action. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, okay. And if you look at the next sentence, therefore we imagine tiny beings living in wood or this. Okay. Now, if we look at this sentence, because we are this, therefore this. So if you look at read the two sentences together, both are beginning with a transition word.
Yes.
Yeah. Now instead here, now both beginning with transition words, since because of this, therefore this, that wouldn't be quite correct. So the first one should be a statement without the transition, and the second one would begin with therefore.
Okay.
Right now we are not changing the next one. So here we will have only we. Right? So yeah, you missed out this a little bit because this has to go in context of the whole thing.
Yes.
Right? Okay, number 16, any change?
No, I don't think so. I did no change.
It says that, what's your answer for 16?
Ma'am, no change.
A, no change. Now, if you look at this word, that is, there's a comma before that.
Oh.
What would go instead?
Which is.
So D would be your answer. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we have to be very careful. Don't get misled by just what is after. You have to see what is before also. Right? So punctuations, word usage, everything goes together.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, now if you look at number 17, what's your answer?
Ma'am, option D.
Option D. Okay, why did you go with option D?
Ma'am, I just thought it would be much more concise there.
Concise. And it also goes with the parallel structure of the words. They can design buildings, compose music, and formulate scientific theories. Yeah, instead of can formulate, it will be only formulate. Right? So this
Yes,
is an example of the parallel structure. Design buildings, compose music, formulate scientific theories.
yes,
Okay. Now, number 18. This was sentence placement,
yes, ma'am.
right? So what's your answer?
Ma'am, after second line, before
Hmm?
sentence 3.
Before sentence 3. Okay. Now your given sentence is, others are sad and busy, such as the belief in shapelifting. Yeah. Now, if you had to place a sentence, you would be reading the entire paragraph.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, the previous paragraph ended with willful
Doubt.
agency is our default explanation.
Yes,
Yeah. And this begins with our brains are creative. So it goes into another point that why we think so or why we have such thoughts. Our
yes,
brains are creative. They can design buildings, compose music, and formulate scientific theories. But this creativity is sometimes hard to discipline. Um, and so we are susceptible to strange thoughts and superstitions, right?
yes, ma'am.
Now, if you look at the first one, our brains are creative, they do all these things. Uh, sentence 2 says that sentence 2 talks about the different things you can do. Sentence 3 talks about but this creativity is sometimes hard to discipline. Now, this is talking about being creative, different things that can do, and this creativity. Right now, if you place this sentence before 3,
Yes,
yeah. So
it could
what
be
is
wrong.
written in 3 should follow from this.
Yes, ma'am.
Others are sad and busy, such as the belief in
Shape.
shapelifting. So this sentence is not talking about anything related to creativity, right? So we cannot place it before 3, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now we move on. Let's see. Now this creativity is sometimes hard to discipline, and so we are susceptible to strange thoughts and superstitions. Yeah, many of these. Now here you'll always look at the connecting words. Many of these, what is this talking about?
Ma'am,
Many of these are these susceptible thoughts, superstitions. Yeah, like blessing people when they sneeze are harmless if not quaint. Yeah, so here we have come to are harmless if not quaint. Many of these are harmless if not quaint. Now, in 2014, villagers in Nigeria brought a goat into a police station, accusing it of being a watch which that had attempted to steal a car and then changed into a goat.
yes,
Right now, this is giving you some example.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and now if you look at this sentence, others are sad and busy, such as the belief in shapelifting. Now, this is talking about something specific.
Yes,
Yeah. So now this can't go. Where could this go? Could this go before sentence 4? Now,
before sentence 5.
before sentence 2 and before sentence 3, we have eliminated.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, before sentence 4, can this go?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm?
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Or before
Before
sentence
sentence 5.
5? So this would be better before sentence 5. Now, before sentence 4, we have already established a connection between 3 and 4.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the many of these are like blessings and then squeeze this are harmless but not quaint. And then we go on to others are. So many of these, and then others are sad. Many of these are quaint. Here we are talking about them being quaint. Others are sad and bizarre. So this will go before 5. So you have to be a little careful in
Yes, ma'am.
establishing the connection between sentences, right? So if there is already a connection between the sentences as they exist, then your sentence will not go between those particular spaces. Yeah, you have to look at the particular spaces and see yes, yes or no, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, number 19.
Ma'am, they can. See.
Hmm?
See.
See, they can. Okay, yes, that would be correct. Although superstitions explanations relieve our cognitive dissociation, it might not lead to tragedy. It's talking about superstitious explanations. We need a plural over here, not
Yes, ma'am.
it. Okay, number 20.
Ma'am, I went for no change.
Went for no change. Okay, so if we look at the sentence, what is it talking about? Now, if you look at 2005, people in Paraguay were killed because locals accused them of witchcraft. Some superstitious parents have been beaten or disowned by their own children because their strange behavior is attributed to demonic possession. Now, here we have a little bit of a problem with they, right? Hmm?
Yes, ma'am.
And some superstitious parents have even beaten or disowned their own children.
Children.
Now, this they refers to their children. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
if we look at this, have even beaten. So, we can say just beaten could do or disown their own children because their strange behavior is attributed to demonic possession. Now, because here, if we say, is it very clear? Because their strange behavior, why?
Yes, ma'am.
There's something wrong. Now, we look at the sentences given to us. Let's see if there is an improvement in any of them. This says some superstitious parents, believing that any strange behavior is a sign of demonic possession, have even beaten or disowned their own children. That seems better.
Yes,
It's giving us some superstitious parents have even beaten or disowned their own children, and why this is clearly separated from the rest of the sentence. Yeah,
yes,
believing that any strange behavior is a sign of demonic possession, have beaten them. That could be a better option. Let's look at the others. Even beating or disowning their children, many superstitious, this is wrong. Sentence structure is wrong. Some superstitious parents believing that this strange behavior, this is also wrong. So we will go with B. Yeah. So this
yes,
is
ma'am.
you have to when a complete sentence is given to you, what do you look at? Where the sentence structure and the way the information is given to you is correct or not, and whether it gives you clarity of thought. So the
Yes,
sentence
ma'am.
as given to you doesn't give you clarity of thought. B brings in the clarity of thought, right? Okay, now let's look at the other ones.
I think
Number
option
21.
D. Option D.
Option D.
Or C, ma'am. I was confused in between those two, like which should be the
C
one.
and D. Okay. Exempt and satisfy are two completely different words. Now here, rituals intend to help your favorite football team score, like dancing or wearing a hat, fun and others. They substitute a craving in our brains for controlling. Now, it wouldn't be substitute, right?
Yes, ma'am. Like
It's talking about a craving in our brains for control over situations that otherwise mystify us. So it's if you were to use some word or phrase of your own, you could say that they fulfill a craving in our brains.
yes, ma'am.
So satisfy would be your answer. Exempt is to leave out or to exempt something, exempt somebody from doing something, So the
Okay.
teacher exempt you from doing your homework, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
here satisfy would be your answer,
Okay, ma'am.
right? Okay, number 22.
And I went for option A.
Hmm?
Option A.
A. Okay, here you have to, which concluding sentence would be the most in keeping with the content and tone of the passage of the whole? So this is the whole thing, this is a concluding statement of the entire passage.
Passage.
So what did you look at when you were choosing a particular statement?
Like how it would end, like how
Yeah, so it should be in accordance with the main idea of the entire passage.
passage.
So the entire passage is talking about different types of superstitions that
Superstition.
people have
Yes,
and
ma'am.
why they have these type of superstitions. And if you look at this particular paragraph, it was talking about something like something you do and it satisfies your own feelings, etc. Right? However, feeling like we have control over a situation is not always the same as
Yes.
understanding it. So we don't really understand things, but we want to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Now they represent some of humanity's greatest accomplishments. That wouldn't be. Centuries from now, our rituals may become so elaborate. Now that also isn't really what it is talking about. Without such ritual, we would not feel as connected as people around the natural world now. So A is the only one which would go in with the given passage,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Okay, now we have passage 3. Okay, passage 3, number 23, what's your answer?
Ma'am, option B.
Option
B.
B.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes, you are right. Now it's said today the field of climatology seems to have more than its share of skeptics debating a warm planet and the things that should be done by us about it, if anything. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
is more or less. What did you find here? There was a little redundancy and clarity of thought wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
And so B would come up with the clarity of thought. What should be done about a warming planet
If we
if
choose.
we should? Okay, number 24,
Ma'am, option B.
B or D?
B. B.
B for dog,
No, ma'am. B for Bombay.
B for Bombay. Okay. While coming, let's see if it fits in. Today the field, okay, number 24, sorry. They are coming from outside of the scientific community. Many of these skeptics couch their arguments in political terms. Now, if you say while coming, that means it is setting up a contrast.
Okay.
But does the sentence have anything to contrast with?
No, ma'am.
No, right? So we
So,
will not go with while coming or their coming. We will go
coming.
with just coming. Coming
Okay.
from outside the scientific community, many of these skeptics couch their arguments in political terms, right?
Yes,
That
ma'am.
would be clear and concise. Okay, number 25.
Ma'am, option B.
Hmm?
Option B.
Option D.
B. B.
B. Okay, let's see. So why did you go with B? Any idea?
I think this was the most suited one, like out of the other options. There.
Okay, let's see. Some claim that global warming is part of a partisan left-wing plot community to ensure funding for yet another chicken little scare. Others suggest that attempts to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by changing energy or land use policies would provide a needless cost of the American taxpayer of tens to hundreds of billions of dollars. So the way it is given, the structure is wrong, and there are too many words and a little complicated. It would rather it. What does it actually mean to say that all these attempts would, by changing energy or land use policies, would actually just about impose another tax, yeah,
Yes,
or impose a cost on the taxpayers, right? Something of
yes,
that
ma'am.
sort.
Yes,
Okay, now if you look at B, would be needless in costing the American taxpayer. We are again creating a complex sentence, but not bringing about clarity, right?
yes, ma'am.
Now if you look at C, it says would needlessly cost the American taxpayer tens to hundreds of billions of dollars annually. Now that would be a little more concise
Yes, ma'am.
and it would be also little logical. Now, and D says is a needless cost to the American taxpayer of. So here again it becomes it says the same thing, needless cost to the American taxpayer. So needless cost we know it is. It would needlessly cost the American taxpayer so many dollars. That would be better. So if we read the entire sentence, would provide a needless cost of the American taxpayer of tens to hundreds of billions of dollars annually. Instead, if you say would needlessly cost the American taxpayer tens to hundred billions of dollars annually, that would
Yes,
be concise and clear, right? Okay. Now number 26.
ma'am. I was in confusion to what it
Hmm.
should be accounts for or represents. Like,
Accounts for or represents.
yeah,
Okay. Let's see whether it requires any change or would accounts for or represents
yes,
be
ma'am.
the answer. It says, in fact, science has or should have nothing to do with ideology. Rather, it is a process of identifying significant natural phenomena, gathering evidence about these phenomena, and then we must find, etc., etc. Okay. So now, if you read the sentence, it rather it accounts for a process. Would that be correct?
No, ma'am. I don't
No,
think.
right? Or rather represents a process. That also is a little over the top. Is a
Okay,
process is absolutely fine. So we go with
okay,
no change. So
okay.
simple, clear what it is trying to say,
Yeah.
right? Okay, now we come to number 27,
Ma'am, option B.
option B. Yes, you are correct. Why did you go with option B?
Ma'am, like I was in, confusion like B or D. Like I
Hmm.
thought that D could also be a way,
Hmm.
like right answer, but I found out that B has a little bit, one or two more words, and you need to be
Hmm.
concise in the test. So I went for
Right.
B.
So if you read the complete sentence, rather it is a process of identifying significant natural phenomena, gathering evidence about those phenomena. Now, if you see, it's a list of things of what it is. It is a
Yes, ma'am.
process of identifying significant natural phenomena,
Yes,
gathering evidence, so finding the most reliable explanation for that evidence,
yes,
right? So the B will be now finding the most reliable way for explaining that evidence. That wouldn't be okay because it wouldn't be in the parallel structure. So we are looking at a parallel structure, right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we come to number 28,
Ma'am, I went for option D here.
option D.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, option D is correct. Now we'll still go through the reason why you went through with this. It says
Like
that,
it was the most
hmm,
shortest one, and after there was and, like after
hmm,
comma there was an and.
hmm.
So I
And
thought that would be the most, you know,
hmm.
correct. Yes.
So if you look at it, what is said before, the preponderance of the evidence suggests that the earth is getting warmer, that the effects of that warming will be problematic, that there are things we can do to prevent or at least mitigate the worst outcomes, and Then if you look at here again, we have a parallel structure. Each one is beginning with that there are things
Yes, ma'am.
or that the effect of. So and that many of these things are well worth doing. Yeah, or that many of these things may be well worth doing. That would be correct. Okay, number 29,
I was in confusion like B, C or D.
C or D.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's see. First, read what it is. The question is, in the context of the passage as a whole, which of the following completes the sentence most appropriately?
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
it should be in the context also. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is still plenty of uncertainty about the complex systems that made up our planetary climate, but we know enough to be concerned and to discuss the issue without politicizing it. Now, if you see, this is actually a concluding statement
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
paragraph, right? So now, before this, they were talking about various problems, it was also talking about like identifying the problem, not politicizing. Before that, also, right?
Yes,
So here it says, and like there's still plenty of uncertainty about the complex systems that make a planetary system, but we know enough to be concerned, and this is a solution they are providing, right?
yes,
And to
ma'am.
discuss the issue without politicizing it. Now, if we look at the other options given, any one of them would be better than this or not. We have to see. Yeah. And to expose the agendas of those who stand in the way of saving our planet. Now, is it talking about people who are uh, standing like here? We have already talked about the different suggestions. It shouldn't be something that is repeated or out of context,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So now in the entire paragraph, it was talking about what is this ideology, does identify, then we must find the most reliable explanation for the evidence,
Yes, ma'am.
then preponderance of the evidence suggests that earth is getting warmer, that is what we have concluded from what the studies have said, and
Yes,
the
ma'am.
effects of the warming will be problematic, and there are things we can do to prevent or at least mitigate the worst outcomes, and perhaps that many of these things are well worth doing. There is still plenty of uncertainty about the system.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are a lot of things that we have to do. Yeah.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
if you look at the previous paragraph, it was also talking about like it had begun with the previous paragraph was about the politicizing it, right?
Yeah.
And then they came to different solutions that could be come up, this different ways it could be studied and the solutions that we need to come up with,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And so here if we say, and to expose the agendas of those who stand in the way of saving our planet, this doesn't really fit in. We are
Yes,
rather
ma'am.
talking about discussing the issue and finding a solution. Yeah.
Yes,
And if
ma'am.
you look at C, but not enough to risk sacrificing our political economic security. So that doesn't really make sense over here. And to create a strong incentive program to transform our national agency energy policy. Now, this could be, but here if we see, discuss the issue without politicizing is goes with the tone and the context of the passage as such.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this paragraph and whatever the previous paragraph was saying, and if you see, this is not really the concluding statement of the entire passage.
Yes, ma'am.
So if it was a concluding statement of the entire passage, then D could have been an answer. But since this is a concluding statement of say this paragraph, so the thought process in the previous paragraph and this paragraph can be taken into account. So I
Yes.
think the sentence that is given to you is
Is correct.
appropriate,
Okay.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now number 30.
Ma'am, option B won't make that true.
Option B won't make that true, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the skeptics point out rightly that science isn't about consensus. The fact that 98% of climatologists regard something as true isn't the same as it's being true, right?
Yeah.
Won't make that true. So yeah, the fact that so many countries regard something as true won't make it true would be a better option.
Yes.
Okay, after all, only, okay, now number 31.
Ma'am, here I
Hmm?
think no change should be the correct one.
No
No change
change
of,
should be the correct. Okay. Now, after all, only centuries ago, the majority of the physicians worldwide believed that illness were caused not by germs or genetics, but by demons or imbalances in
humor.
humors. Um, but by,
But
but
from,
instead from, but from, no. But by is correct over here.
okay.
So no change will be the correct answer.
Ma'am, like in 32, I was
Hmm.
in doubt, like, should I go with no change or like option D?
Okay. No change or option D.
Yeah.
Okay, the sentence is having an honest and productive conversation about global warming requires an educated public.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, requires an educated public is absolutely right because
Yeah.
it is said having an honest and productive conversation. What does that require? Yeah,
Yeah.
require having an educated public would
Won't
be
be.
a little redundant.
Okay.
So just requires would be correct over here. Yeah. Okay, now number 33. This was again sentence placement.
Ma'am, after
Mhm.
sentence three,
After sentence
three,
3. Okay, after sentence 3, that is, you said D.
yeah,
Okay, let's see. Now your sentence to be inserted is, furthermore, we become more adept at evaluating the facts and theories at the heart of the matter. Okay, where should this be placed, right? For now, what is the rest of the paragraph talking about? We have to see that. Having an honest and productive conversation about global warming requires an educated public. When we as public citizens become more informed about the science of climatology, we become less susceptible to political snipping and to consensus as an argument, right? So if you look at this, this requires an educated public, and this elaborates on what would be the meaning of an educated public, or what an educated public would do, right? Then it says, most important perhaps, we become better able to make good decisions about the future of our nation or our planet. Yeah. Here it begins with most important perhaps. Now if you look at the sentence that we have here, furthermore, it begins with what? Furthermore, we become more adept at evaluating the facts and theories at the heart of the matter. Now, between placing it before sentence 3 and after sentence 3, we have to see how does it connect,
yes, ma'am.
right? Now, sentence 2 said, sentence 2 was talking about the different ways that an educated public would engage. Yeah.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
this gives us furthermore, and sentence 3 begins with most important. So maybe the most important thing will come afterwards. And here the furthermore we become more adept in
Before
evaluating
line three
that.
should be
So this could come in
before.
before 3.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
then our answer would be C
Correct.
before sentence 3,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Okay, now you have another passage. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay, here this one I think would be a little easier, right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, number 34, what was your
I'm
answer?
option B.
Option B.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if it's correct. Bohemia is a landlocked country in Central Europe. It says, and until 1918, they were ruled from Vienna by the Austrian Habsburgs. Now you said comma until. You remove the and,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah? So
Yes.
if you remove the and use only comma, what do you have to see?
Oh, yes.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Anything wrong?
And there are two more places there. So,
Yeah, so there are two independent clauses here.
yes, ma'am.
This is also independent clause, this is also independent clause. So comma and would be joining the two together.
So no change.
So I think there'd be no change.
Ma'am,
Okay.
like for 35th, I
Hmm,
went, I was in doubt like amounts to or compromises. Comprises,
okay.
sorry.
Comprises.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the sentence. Today it now regards a major part of the modern Czech. Now regards would be wrong anyway. Uh, Dash a major part of the modern Czech Republic and its largest city Prague serves as the nation's capital.
Yeah.
So we now if you don't have any words, say you don't have any of these options.
Yeah.
So what would you think can fill in? Today it is maybe a part.
Major
To,
part. No, sir. That
today it
it
consists of a major part or
is.
is a major part.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that means it
Comprises.
comprises of, not
Yeah.
amounts to,
Okay.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Comprises of a major part. So is a major part would be comprises of.
Okay.
Okay, number 36.
Ma'am, I went for no change here.
You went for no change. Okay. Let's see if there is any flaw or it could be no change. Now,
Okay.
this Bohemia, in fact, derives from misconceptions about the true Bohemia that go back as far as Shakespeare, designating Bohemia as a land of gypsies and the spiritual habitation of artists.
Designated.
So, now if you see this part, there's misconceptions about a true Bohemia and go far back as Shakespeare. Now, go far back as Shakespeare means it is going back to that period of Shakespeare,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And we would not say who designated because we are not about Shakespeare designated Bohemia as land of gypsies. So now, but here we are talking about Bohemia derives its fact from misconceptions, designating Bohemia as the land of gypsies, right? So if we just remove the complexity and just take the main points, we'll see that
No change.
we can go with no change.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had designated would also be wrong. Being
Being the
designated by him would also be wrong. Okay, just because Shakespeare has come in doesn't mean that
that.
Shakespeare is
Yeah.
responsible for them.
Yes.
Okay, number 37,
Ma'am, option D.
option
D.
B or D?
D. D.
D, had
Yeah.
meant. Okay, let's see. By 1843, when Michael William Balfe's opera The Bohemian Girl premiered in London, the term Bohemian would come to mean, now would come to mean would be wrong because this is already the past.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And we are not talking about if, it is something that has happened.
Yes, ma'am.
So no change would be,
Wrong.
no, would not be. Now you said had
Had me.
meant and any wandering. Now here it says would come to mean or had come to mean could be an answer here. Now,
Yes,
it's if you look at this, by 1843, when Michael William Besser appeared the Bohemian Girl premiered in London, the term Bohemian had meant any wandering or vagabond soul. Now, that would be a little wrong because it wasn't had meant. Now, you're talking about a period. By this period of time, it came to mean, right? So it would come to mean would be correct. Had come to mean would be right. So would come to mean would be in the future.
yes,
This is something like by this period, this already meant a wandering vagabond soul.
yes,
Yeah. So it would instead of had meant had come to mean would go with the tone of the passage also.
yeah,
Right. You also need to look at the tone of the passage.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then if you look at the rest part, who need not have been associated with art, so need not have been associated in the same flow if you see, or the same parallel structure, it wouldn't be had meant. So
Yes, ma'am.
then in that case, then this would be who instead of who need not have been associated, it would be who were not associated,
Yes,
right?
yeah, ma'am.
Okay, so going with the tone and the parallel structure of the sentence, we would go with had come to me.
Ma'am.
Okay, number 38,
I'm option D.
option D.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's see. In November, this a dramatized version was staged in Paris with little so extraordinarily successful. Did this prove that the stories themselves were published as Bohemian? So, did this prove is of course wrong. So
Yes,
no change would be not
ma'am.
the answer.
Yes, ma'am.
This so extraordinarily successful. This proved. Now this
Yes,
proved. If
proof
you look at
that
the language of the passage, this proved that the stories that seems a little odd, right?
yeah,
It may be grammatically correct. This proved to be. It should be then. Yeah. This proved what? This proved to be so extraordinarily successful. This proved to be that the stories themselves, but we don't have proof to be over here.
yeah.
So what would your answer be then?
This was proved.
This was proven.
Oh,
Yeah. So extraordinary. This was proven
was
that
this
the
proven,
stories.
ma'am?
Huh?
It
Was
was.
this proven? Yeah. Was this proven? So extraordinarily successful was this proven that the story. Now, this was proved is also not in accordance to the tone of the passage,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Was this proven? It is like it was proven to be successful, right? So D will be your answer here. Okay, now the next one.
And I went for no change.
Hmm?
No change.
No change. Okay, let's see whether we go for no change or not. Now it says, what was it that were the basic elements of this bohemia that had evolved under Murger? What was it that were the basic elements? If you see, what was it that were the basic elements? Now, there are two things representing the same, and they are both grammatically different.
Yeah.
What was it that were the basic elements? Either you would say what were the basic elements,
About basic elements person.
or let's see if any of them others fit. So, what were they that were the basic elements? No,
Oh,
that is again redundant. What basic elements were there would make it a little complicated,
it is.
not grammatically correct. What were the basic elements? That would be correct. Yeah. What was it that were, like here there is a contrast in the grammatical form. You have
That's true.
singular and then you have plural, and besides there is a little redundancy also. So we will go with D. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now coming to number 40. I think this is
I
the
didn't.
usage of
I wasn't
words.
sure which one to choose here. Like,
Okay. So we have to see what the sentence is talking about first.
yes,
The believers in this case were the artists themselves, the elect of the spirit, touched with the divine power of imagination, while the heathen were the commercial middle classes who had propagated as a result of increased commodity production in the wake of the Industrial Revolution. Now, if you see, it's talking about the artists here, and here it's talking about the uh, commercial middle classes
yes,
who had dash as a result of increased commodity production in the wake of industrial revolution. So it's talking about the middle classes who had what? There was an increase in the commodity production in the wake of the middle industrial revolution. So
yes, ma'am.
propagated would be also grown, like to uh, when something grows, you can say it propagates, like a plant propagates from its parts, etc.
Yes, ma'am.
But in this case, if you see, what word would be more suitable than propagate? Prospered,
Yeah,
yeah.
prospered.
But
Yeah,
preempted will not. Prohibited, propagated would be a different meaning altogether. Here it would
yes,
be
ma'am.
prospered. So the middle class prospered as a result of the increased commodity, right?
Yes, ma'am. I
Okay,
think I made a mistake in like reading prospered word.
okay, yeah. Maybe they all of them seem complicated and a little more or less similar.
Yes, ma'am.
You got a little tired away. So you have to be very careful when you are reading the words because
Yes, ma'am.
the words may seem complicated, but when you read the context, you can easily get the meaning and
Correct,
the
ma'am.
word required.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now number 41. It's related to this sentence, right? So as Philistines, they seemed inhabit a different country from that of the Bohemians. Murger's achievement was to define
Correct,
quite
yes, sir.
persuasively the boundaries of Bohemia in terms of a particular lifestyle. So what did you mark here? Is it a little complicated?
Yeah, ma'am, but
Hmm.
I went for no change or like option B. These were the two which I went like thought
Okay.
of.
So if you look at this sentence, what do you think is wrong in the sentence? Or if you think it is correct. Now it is a little complicated, but if we break it down, now if you read the previous sentence, to the artist, these were people of no imagination who were only concerned with material things. These were people who are they talking about? The
Yes, ma'am.
middle class, yeah,
Yeah,
who were only concerned with. Now, to the artists, the middle class were people of no imagination who were only concerned with material things. Now, as Philistines, they seemed inhabit a different country, or rather, it would be seemed to inhabit, or seen inhabitants of, seemed to would be correct here. Seemed to inhabit a different country from that of the Bohemians.
yes, ma'am.
So the artists and these people were different from the Bohemians. Uh, and there's a semicolon. So this is another. They have a semicolon over here. Should we have a semicolon? It says, then it goes on. Murger's achievement was to define quite persuasively the boundaries of Bohemia in terms of a particular lifestyle.
No,
Yeah.
ma'am, I don't think there should be a
So
semicolon. A
this,
comma
yeah.
should be perfect.
So they could. So how are the thoughts related? Now it's talking about as Philistines, they seem to inhabit a different country from that of the Bohemians. So there's a contrasting characteristic between the Bohemians and the Mughals.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So here, does any of these give you a contrasting characteristic? But gives a contrast.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. But we won't go with
With the semicolon.
semicolon. We will go with the comma. So C will be a better. So if we say, as Philistines, they seem to inhabit a different country from that of the Bohemians, but Murger's achievement was to define. Now it is an apostrophe, yes.
Yes,
Murger's
ma'am.
achievement was to define quite persuasively the boundaries of Bohemia in terms of a particular lifestyle. So I think that would be correct over here,
Yeah.
right? So not as it is given, but C, which brings out. Now, if you look at these two, we can't find a connection between the two thoughts,
Yes, ma'am.
and C would be connecting the two thoughts
Yes, ma'am.
appropriately, right? Okay,
Yeah.
now coming to number 42. This is also something to do with sentence structure or grammar. In this Bohemia, the production of art was in fact
I
less
went for
important.
option D in this one, like D.
Option D.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see, why did you go with option D? In this Bohemia, the production of art was in fact less important than whether one had the capacity of art. Yeah, so than one's capacity of art, that would be correct.
Yes.
Yeah, whether one had the capacity would be a little too redundant. So the fact, uh, the production of art was in fact less important than one's capacity for art. That would be a parallel structure and concise,
Yes.
right? Okay, now question number 5. Okay, question number 43 is about sentence placement. Now we read most of the paragraph. Read it again. Considering including the sentence, Murger can thus be described. Yeah, so can thus be described as a Bohemian of the second generation, right? So where do you want to place this?
I'm like, I don't know, like not sure on this one.
What did you mark? Were you what are the two options that you thought could be correct?
I'm after sentence 2 or after sentence 3, like that.
After sentence 1 and after sentence 3.
Yeah.
Okay, now
Not
what
2 or 3, 2 and 3.
after 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Now read this given sentence again. Murger can thus be described as a Bohemian of the second generation. So this is something of a concluding sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
Some conclusion is being taken. Now this conclusion should fit in some way. Now if you look at the sentences given to you, to the artist, these were people. Now it can't be of before one. As Philistines, they seemed inhabitant of a different country from that of the Bohemians. Mughals' achievement was to define. So here they are introducing the Mughals. Yeah. So it can't be before 2, right? Let's see 3. Quite persuasively, the boundaries of Bohemia in terms of a particular style. In his Bohemia, the production of art was in fact less important than one's capacity of art. So here also is description of Bohemia.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now Murger was also responsible for the term Bohemia. Now here we come to Murger again. Murger was also responsible for the term Bohemian becoming inseparably linked with the supposedly unconventional, outlandish behavior of artists. Yes, it is evident that he did not invent Bohemianism. Yeah. So now we have two terms. We were describing Murger, we were describing Bohemia, and getting a relationship between the two,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So here it was Murger was also responsible for the term Bohemia. So this is all connected to what we were talking about before, right?
Yes. Yes,
Now, when
ma'am.
we come to the options over here, now most of its ingredients had existed in Paris for at least 2 decades before he started writing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Now, this also connects to what we had earlier. No, this should be going into the next.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. So now, if we see, does this sentence fit in the middle anyway?
no.
Murger can thus be described as a Bohemian of the second generation. So this is a conclusion that okay, Bohemians were this, Murgers were these were the characters of Bohemians, these were the characters of the Murgers. So this is something we cannot fit in after one, after two, or after three.
Yes, ma'am.
So we will go with after five because it comes as a concluding sentence. Right? Got it?
Yeah, ma'am.
So you got the logic behind saying behind doing this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now whenever you have something like thus or therefore, then you know that okay, this is a conclusion from something that's been
In there.
said before this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we have number 44. Now here again we have a conclusion to the paragraph or the passage. If the author were to delete the quotation from Jules Clarity at the conclusion of the paragraph, the passage would primarily lose what? Okay, so what do you think?
Ma'am, I was like in confusion between B and C, you could say. B, C, and A, like that.
Between B and C. Okay,
Yeah.
so first we have to know what has been said,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So now what we'll do is we read the entire paragraph, right? So when you read the entire paragraph, what did you see? You first get to that. What is this paragraph really talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. What is
Yeah.
the main point of the paragraph? Is this particular quote relevant to the paragraph or not?
Yes.
Now here it is already. It's anyway saying the passage which primarily lose something means it is important,
Yes, ma'am.
right? It should be there. So what would it lose? Here it says Bohemia had been a haven for the political rebel, and as the 19th century drew to a close, more than one French observer had seen it as the breeding ground of cynicism, as the source of much potential danger, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this is what he wrote. It is quite clear, Jules Flattery wrote indignantly in 1888. If you see again, indignantly is there, that means he was a little cynical about what he wrote, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That every country has its bohemians, but they do not have the influence over the rest of the nation which they do in France, thanks to the poisonous element in the French character, which is known as la blague or cynicism,
I'm seeing.
right? So, what is this summing up? That every there was a whole debate about the Bohemia or the culture that of the Bohemians. So he says that every country has its Bohemian. That is, those who do not follow certain rules or those who think differently, but they
Yes,
do
ma'am.
not have the influence of the rest of the nations as they do in France.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is something important. Now, if we look at the options here, if we delete this, what will happen? A sanguine view of the late 19th
19th
century
century
French
French
culture
culture.
that would lose that. So this is the view of the uh, not only the writer but also an important point about the French culture.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
the influence on France. Now, and scathing perspective on Murger's literary work. Now, it is not about Murger's literary work over here,
Yes.
right? It's not,
Yeah.
the entire paragraph is not talking anything about Murger's literary work.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
dire assessment of France's national temperament. Is it talking about an assessment of its national temperament?
Yeah.
Not really. It's talking more about the influence on culture.
Yes.
An urgent warning against a potential immigration problem? No. Right? So
Yeah.
between A and C, I think A is more appropriate because
Okay.
it's not talking about its culture, which it would lose out on.
Okay.
Right? So A would
Yes,
be
ma'am.
the one. Okay?
Yeah.
So these were the 44 questions in this.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
this is the type of question that you would be coming up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is how you would be dealing with the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now in session 12, were you able to do the passage that was left?
No, ma'am. I didn't do this one. I forgot of this one.
Okay. You forgot to do it.
Yes,
Okay. So now this adds to your homework.
ma'am. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So make sure you finish passage 2 before you move on to the rest of the homework.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So
Yeah.
now today we will move on to
Session
session
13.
13. Okay. Okay. Now this is when now till now what we did were learning about the different strategies, the different types of questions, how to deal with them, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So
So,
do you have any doubts on the different types of questions and how to deal with them?
no, ma'am. Now I understood like
Now you
how to do it.
understood?
Yeah.
So whatever, now you will go back to the questions you got wrong.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe session 10, you did all types of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now what you will do is, first thing you will go back to the question that you got wrong.
Yeah.
And you will analyze, okay, why was it wrong? Where did you go wrong?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. That's why I told you, whenever you are doing the question in session 10, I had told you that when you are doing it, write down your reason for choosing that answer.
Yes, ma'am.
So what happens is maybe you choose an answer, you haven't analyzed properly, you got it wrong. So now if you know your thought process and why you chose that particular answer, then you would know why you went wrong,
Yeah.
right? So that
Yes.
is important. So now anyway, now you know why you went wrong. You
Yeah.
have more or less figured out what the answers, why you chose a particular answer,
Yes.
and then you went wrong. Okay. Now, in this session, in session 13 onwards, now what we'll do is, there are two things that you need for answering or for the test. Number one is accuracy, right?
Yeah.
And number two is timing,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So accuracy, you would come with your strategy
Yes.
and practice, and timing will come with practice. Yeah. And so now what you will do is, I'll give you a timing and say, now you know that in the test you have 4 passages,
Yes,
11
ma'am.
questions for each passage,
Yes, ma'am.
and you have 35 minutes. So if we keep 5 minutes for
Oh,
revision, so about 30 minutes you have for 4 passages.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So on an average for each passage, how many minutes will you get?
6.5.
6.5 or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe around 6 minutes per
Six and a
passage.
half minutes.
Yeah. So say around 6 minutes, you should be able to complete the passage.
Yes.
Why? Because now 5 minutes for revision and 6 plus half minute per passage, half minute or at least 1 minute you will require to transfer your answers into the sheet.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not only marking the answers here, but transferring the answers to the sheet,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
now that takes a little bit of time. So
Yeah.
what you will do is you will do each passage. Now the strategy in the exam to save time and to be able to fill in all the answers even if you don't have time. So you do one passage, transfer the answers. So you have to fill in with your pencil. And one thing more, remember that don't use a hard pencil. Use a normal
Okay.
HB pencil.
So like we
No,
have to use
no pen
pencil.
pencils. No pen pencils.
Okay.
Normal HB pencil.
Ma'am, like the Nataraj one would do, right?
Yeah, the Nataraj. You have to see that it should like you write with those pencils and see which one is the best suited. Because when you are erasing, there should not be any mark,
Okay. Yeah.
right? And you
Okay.
don't need a very sharp one. If you use a very sharp pencil, there'll
It
be a
might.
little mark.
Yeah.
So if you erase and change the answer, then that will remain.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yes, ma'am.
use a soft HB pencil which will not leave any smudge or mark or any indent on the paper,
Okay. So,
right?
ma'am, which HP should be like if you recommend? So, which HP
I
should be
think
like
Natraj would be fine. Natraj or maybe the Faber Castell ones,
ever
any of
possible?
them. So you
Okay.
figure out whatever pencils you have out of those, which is the best to be used. So you
Okay.
practice, and when you're practicing with pencil only,
Okay,
and
ma'am.
so you will know how to go about it,
Yeah, ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now in these, and these chapters don't have the OMR sheets given at the end. So what you can do is, say the tests that you take, those will be having some OMR sheets, or maybe even on the net you will get OMR sheets. You can just print it out,
Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you just print out an OMR sheet and practice as
Okay.
you answer.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So
Yes,
now
ma'am.
while you are answering, one thing to make sure that you don't fill in a wrong answer later on. Say
Yeah.
you suppose in question number 1 you got C correct. So what you will do is you circle it, and so it is prominent. So when you are transferring your answers, you don't have to search. Okay, which was the answer? So now each of the passages will have 11 questions. So
Yes, ma'am.
you answer, say you have 4 passages, you answer all questions of passage number 1, transfer the, mark the answers on the OMR sheet. Then you go on to passage number 2, right?
Yes.
And so that's why now this entire process should take you 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 11 questions to mark in the OMR sheet will not take you more than half a minute,
Yeah.
and say 6 minutes to answer all the questions, right? So now what we'll do today is I will time you and see how long you would take to finish one passage at a time.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will time you for each passage, and say we will begin with. I'll give you a little extra time in the beginning. So first 2 passages I will give you 7 minutes,
Okay.
right? So that is a little more than what you will require. But since it's the first time you are working with timing, you will be I'll give you just 7 minutes. But when you are practicing at home also, you will have the timer in front of you. Set the timer on your mobile phone and
Okay.
then start working,
Okay, ma'am.
right? So
Yes, ma'am.
that way you will be able to uh, uh, keep the time, and it will be easy for you.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, like I
Okay,
have one
yes.
more doubt.
Huh?
Like,
Tell me.
ma'am, in like SAT exam, would like questions be marked like this in the paper, like where from what first question is and from
Yeah,
where's the
there
second?
it will be marked like this. So this
In
will
every
this will be a
passage?
marking for every passage in the WL, not in
Okay.
the reading section.
Yeah, ma'am. So in
Reading
reading
section,
one,
nothing will be marked. In WL, the questions will be marked for you exactly
okay.
the way it is. So these are actual SAT passages.
Okay. So, ma'am, like
Right?
for reading, then what would I do like to answer? questions left to be passage.
In the reading section, usually the questions go as the passages, like the first part of the passage, or the first two paragraphs, and then so on. So they, all that is given to you in line numbers would be, sometimes a paragraph would be given to you, paragraph number, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Now in your reading passage, line numbers are given to you. You must
Okay.
have seen 5,
Yeah.
10, 15 line numbers are given to you. So you will
Yes.
follow the line numbers.
Okay.
Usually, if a vocabulary word is given, the line number is given to you,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes paragraph numbers are given to you. So you'll see, okay, paragraph 3 means which paragraph. Or sometimes line numbers will be given from line this to line this. So you have to follow those,
Okay.
right? Like in the inference and command of evidence questions, the line numbers are given in the command of evidence options.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, so those will be clues for you where to look for your answer.
And
Yeah,
ma'am, how much time is given for the reading section?
reading section you get 52 minutes for 5 passages.
Okay.
So more or less about maximum of 8 minutes or 7 to 8 minutes per passage,
Okay, ma'am. And
right?
for total English, it's like around 1.5 hours, right?
1.5.
And then 1.5
No,
around
a
maths.
little less than 1.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, 1 minute. In the reading section, you have, I think, 45 minutes for 4 passages. For five, yeah. So about more or less, if you see about 7 to 8 minutes for one passage, you can take,
Okay.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
So 65 minutes for the entire thing,
English book. Okay.
English
Yeah.
paper. And so that is divided into 35 and say 50.
Okay.
Yeah, not 50, 40, so 45 or so,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
65 minutes or something. I don't know what they're giving now. So if you look at your reading section material,
Yeah.
the first chapter, you have the sectional breakup of the timing also.
Oh,
I think JMS sir would have gone through that with you.
yes, Mama. He went through that, but I forgot it.
Okay. So you go back to it. So more or less, you have to remember that for the reading section, you get a little more time. So,
Yes.
but still about maximum of 7 to 8 minutes, about 8 minutes per passage. And in the writing section, about 6 minutes per passage,
Okay, ma'am.
not more than that. And out of these, maybe some questions take a little less time, some questions take a little more time. So you have to be able to manage your time accordingly.
Ma'am, it is saying that for each passage there should be like 30 minutes time is given.
Yeah, 13 minutes time, that is in like some passages are difficult, some are easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to transfer your answer also, you have to revise also. So everything taken into account, there is a maximum amount of time,
Okay, ma'am.
right? So
Yeah.
maybe the easy passages you can finish up within 8 minutes. A little more difficult passage, some questions may take a little more time. So depending upon the types of questions and the types of passages, your timing will vary. So
Okay.
some you can finish in 8 minutes, some will take 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then you always have to have some time left to go back to the questions you had a little doubt on. So never
Yes.
get stuck on a question which you have doubt on.
Okay, ma'am.
Leave it, move on. Mark something because there's no negative marking.
Okay.
Even if you don't have the time to go back to that question, something is already marked.
Okay.
Maybe it is correct, right? So always mark an answer before you move on, but don't spend too much of time on any question if you have a doubt.
Okay.
So in your rough paper or even there, in your rough paper, you just write down, okay, this, or at the side of each page, write down the question number at the bottom of it, write down the question number you have to go back to.
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so now you have this. Okay, so this has just about 7 questions. Questions
Yes.
1 to 7 for this particular passage. So now for 7 questions, for 11 questions, if you would require around 6 minutes, for 7 questions, you will require less than that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll give you 6 minutes for 7 questions. Yeah. So you
Yes.
can start with your passage number 1. So after you finish all the questions, I will discuss the answers.
Okay, ma'am.
So you mark the questions
Yes.
and then I will discuss. Okay.
I'm done.
Done? Okay,
Yeah.
good. So you got done in less than 6 minutes. Okay, so that means you can do it in 7 questions. You did it in about 5.5 minutes. That is a good time. Okay, now let's look at your answers. Okay,
Ma'am, for first one, I went for no change.
you went for no change. Why you went for no change?
I didn't.
Hmm.
I thought that keeping the
Yeah.
sentence same was the most appropriate.
Hmm. So it has long been known that the sea otters living along the west coast of North America help keep kelp forests in their inhabitants. So this is basically what the verb, you have the noun, the verb, and the sentence formation is correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, now they help, this would be wrong, and help to will be wrong. Where they help would also be wrong. Okay. Interpretation of data in the chart.
And I went for
Anything?
option B.
Option D,
B, B.
B.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is correct. Because here it says 2 years or less of sea otters can completely eliminate sea
The
urchins.
option. Yes, ma'am.
And here it says that even 2 years or less of otter presence can reduce the sea urchin threat. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So that would be correct interpretation. Okay, number 3,
Ma'am, I went for option A here.
option A.
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct. Yes, because it established a relationship between the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and global. Because the rest of it wasn't really giving you the why the carbon dioxide, where the carbon dioxide came from, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, number 4.
Ma'am, here I was like confused like to which one
Hmm.
to go for, like A or D. Because
Okay.
there for there at option 4,
Hmm.
like there's already said that kelp takes as many oxygen from atmosphere. Oh, I
Hmm.
think I'm not
Okay,
sure. Like
so here what we have, it says a recent study by 2 professors at the University of California, Santa Cruz suggests that kelp forests protected by sea otters can absorb as much as 12 times the amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere as those where sea urchins are allowed to devour the kelp.
yes,
So sea otters absorb more, where there are more sea otters, more carbon dioxide is absorbed,
yes, ma'am.
right?
Yeah,
And where there are more sea as those where there are more sea urchins. So where there are more sea urchins, they were allowed to devour the kelp. So
yeah,
carbon dioxide absorption would have been less.
yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yet there are two things: there are sea otters and there are sea urchins. Now coming to the data here, it says kelp forests are protected by sea otters. With kelp forests, the carbon dioxide absorption from the atmosphere has increased. That is there. Do we have some more information? Presence of sea otters has helped in the increase in density of kelp forests, leading to increased carbon dioxide absorption from the atmosphere. Now, if you, which one did you go with?
Am I if I would go for option A?
Option A.
Yeah,
Now, what is now here it says which choice links the text to the data in the chart. Now, what is the text talking about? It is developing a relationship between the presence of sea otters and the
yes,
carbon
ma'am.
dioxide.
Yes, ma'am.
And we also have a relationship between the sea otters and the kelp forests.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, where there are more sea urchins, now if you go back to the chart, sea urchins and kelp forests and the sea otters. Yeah. Now, no otters present, sea urchins were more, kelp was, sea urchins and kelp both were uh, of equal amounts,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Now, here if you see, 2 years of otters being present, sea
Yeah.
urchins were less. Kelp
Yes.
forest grew.
Yeah.
Now here, 10 years of sea urchins of sea otters, the sea urchins were has disappeared,
Yes.
and the kelp forests have grown much more.
Yeah.
So here we have that where there are more sea otters, there are more kelp forests and less sea urchins.
Yes.
Yeah. Now we come back to the data, the information given to us.
Yes.
So here if we see the presence of sea otters has helped in the increase in the density of kelp forests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from the text we come to know that wherever there are more kelp forests, the carbon dioxide absorption is more,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
all these are connected in C. Now if you look at A, it doesn't give us entire information,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Kelp forests are protected by sea otters. But what are the other things?
Yes.
So you have to be able to connect the information given in the text to the information given uh, in
Uh,
the chart,
yeah.
right? So
Yes.
and your answer should connect the entire information together.
Yes.
Got it? Okay. Now number 3 was there. Okay.
I went for no change in this one as well.
No change in this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your sentence here? Scientists knew this but did not recognize how large a role they played in, in helping kelp forests to significantly decrease the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So now here, is there clarity with what is written down?
No.
Now if you look at this, it says, scientists knew this but did not recognize how large a role they played. Now,
I
what
think
was the
it should be C.
previous paragraph was about
Sea
the
otters.
sea otters and kelp forests, yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
and the level of carbon dioxide. Now, here recent study by two professors suggests that kelp forests protected by sea otters absorbed as much as 12 times the amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Yeah.
Yes.
Like the terrestrial plant cousins, kelp removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, turning it into sugar fuel, etc. And
Yeah.
so this fact they knew, but how large a role they played? Who
So
played?
it should be sea otters. So C.
Yeah, so there has to be clarity. C
Yeah.
would be your answer, right? Okay, now we have question number 6.
I went for it after the fourth sentence. Like option C.
After sentence 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here what are they talking about? They want to add what Wilmers and Estes discovered in their study, therefore surprised them.
Yes.
Yeah. So therefore surprised them. So the surprise, why did it surprise them should be before this sentence, right?
Yeah.
So if we put it after sentence 4, that is between sentence 4 and 5, right?
Yeah.
Now sentence 4 says, like the terrestrial plant cousins, kelp removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, uh, turning it into sugar fuel through photosynthesis and releases oxygen back into the air, right?
Yes. Ma'am.
This is what it is doing. Now scientists knew this, but they did not recognize how large a role they played in helping kelp forests to significantly increase the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So now here, what Wilmers discovered in their study therefore surprised them. So what did they discover? This is what they discovered, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Scientists knew about this, but they were quite surprised at how significantly decreased the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, like, this is what they were surprised to discover.
Yeah,
So, would this go after 4 or after 5?
ma'am. Maybe after 5.
It should
Like
go
mostly
after
after
5,
5. Yeah.
right? So,
Yes.
after if you put it after 5, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is more or less before this we have to tell them that what was it, otherwise it will be they in the study therefore surprise them, why it surprised them
Yeah.
is not clear. Okay, now coming to number 7.
Ma'am, option C.
Hmm?
Option C.
Option C. Okay, let's see why option C. Wilmers and Estates caution, however, that
Daughters
having
multiplying
more
with.
otters will not automatically solve the problem of higher levels of carbon dioxide in the air. Now, the otters multiply. Now, would we say the otters multiplying? Now, otters could multiply, but how much? That's a little vague, right?
Yeah. So,
So, keeping in now otters, now if you all again see, what is the tone of the passage? It's a scientific passage,
yes, ma'am.
right? And the tone is what? Formal.
Um,
So we would
option
go
B.
with
B.
terms which are specific to a scientific passage.
Yes.
So increase in the otter population would be better than saying just otters multiply,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So not that it is wrong, but B is a better option than C.
The tone of the passage.
Yeah. So it means
Yeah.
the same, but going with the type of passage, what are the terms used in the passage, B will be a better answer,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
these were your 7 questions from here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now just look at the questions you got wrong.
Ma'am, like after 3, everything was wrong.
Everything was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So now why did you get it wrong? Let's analyze why you got it wrong.
Yes, ma'am.
So in number 4, you got it wrong because you didn't go with the option which contained the
Properly. Yeah.
complete information. So
Yes,
here
ma'am.
you needed complete information. Write it down.
Yeah. Just ma'am.
So there was A, if you marked A, then write here incomplete information.
Yes, ma'am.
And why C would be the right answer? Because it has complete information from the text and from the chart.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now number 5, why you got wrong?
I didn't specify like they shouldn't be there. We need to
Hmm.
specify
So
that
here,
what is playing.
yeah. So what the sentence as it is was lacked clarity over here.
Yeah,
So here we needed clarity,
clarity.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in number 6, the sentence placement one,
I
you had to look at the context.
yes, ma'am.
What was the context that we needed to put this sentence in? So what surprised, what was
Yeah,
the surprise should have come before this, yeah,
yes, ma'am.
and then this was a concluding. So whenever you have therefore, etc., which is a concluding say transition word, so any conjunction or transition which gives you conclusion, so we have to see if it is giving you conclusion,
It
then
should be last.
something that has already been explained before,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Okay, and 7, why did you get it wrong? You didn't
ma'am.
go with
I
the
don't
tone
know
of
it.
the passage,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So now you know your little mistakes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now you can do the next passage.
Yeah.
Now here also we have about 7 questions. So I think I can give you 6 minutes for this.
Yes, ma'am.
Will be more than enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So I give you 6 minutes for this passage.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now just a moment. Now when you are doing the passage, the questions, it
Yes,
is not necessary to do the questions the in the order that has been given to you.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
to save time, uh, you'd always do the grammar questions first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So this
ma'am,
is
most.
like this is a sentence combination question. Maybe it will be a little more complicated. So you
Yes,
go
ma'am.
with the easy ones, finish the easy ones, come back to this.
Yes, ma'am. Like mostly the grammatical ones are in the first, right? Mostly.
Not necessarily. Mostly they are, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
So you just look at the ones which are like number 11. You will not do first.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can do number 9, 10. Then if you look at these, which
I can
is
go
the
for 12, 13 before
interpretation
you.
of data.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, this is accurate. These two are interpretation of data.
Yes,
So the easy ones you finish off, then you can go to the other ones.
yes, ma'am.
So maybe you can do 9, 10, then come back to 8, and then go on to the rest.
Yeah. I'm done.
Done?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's see your answers now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So number 8,
Ma'am, option D.
option
D,
D.
D, D.
D.
Yeah.
Hmm, I won't go with D.
Oh,
Okay, let's read what is given to us and then we will analyze, right?
yes, ma'am.
This is a little complicated. Now, when you have this type, it says combining the underlined sentences. So
Yes,
when
ma'am.
you have two long sentences to combine and your options are also quite long, there
Yeah.
are two things you have to keep in mind. Number one, it should be grammatically correct.
Yeah.
Number two, there should be no redundancy.
Okay.
And over and above this, most important is that in combining the two sentences, it doesn't have to be that the sentences have to be as it is and just combined with punctuations.
Yes, ma'am.
It can be that there could be a change in the format of the sentences.
Yes, ma'am.
It could keep the idea, keep the focus, and combine the two ideas together to form a new sentence,
Yes.
right? So now if you look at the sentences given to us,
Yeah.
they are: one MCP lengthens storage life
Storage of
by 3 to
3 to
4
4
times
times.
when applied to apples. This extended life allows producers to sell their apples in the off
Yeah.
season,
Yes.
months after the apples have been harvested,
Understood.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, what are the main points over here? That is
Ma'am,
applying
one NCP
one MCP
lengthening the
uses of this.
storage.
It lengthens the storage life,
Yeah.
and it can be
Useful for
yeah,
producers
allows
to like
producers
sell
to
their,
sell their apples so they can store it for a longer time and
yeah,
sell it in the off
off
season,
season.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now if we come to D, months. So what was the focus over here?
I'm about how MCP lengthens the storage of the
Right.
apples, which allows the
No.
producers to
So
sell
the
them even
main
after months.
focus over here would be on the usage of MCP and how it extends storage life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you have chosen D, right? Let's read
Yes,
D.
ma'am.
It says, months after apples have been harvested, producers are allowed to sell their apples. Who allows them?
Oh, yeah.
In the off season, because one MCP lengthens storage life when applied to apples by 3 or 4 times. So this becomes a little redundant, and the
Yeah.
flow is also disturbed,
Disturbed. Yes.
and the focus shifts from using an MCP to lengthen the life to somebody allowing them to sell the apples in off season,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So we will not go with B. Now, if you look at the others, now we have to combine them anyway, so we don't have the option of keeping them separate. Now we look at the others. A
Yeah.
says when applied to apples, one MCP strengthens storage life by 3 or 4 times, allowing producers to sell their apples in the off season.
Yeah.
So this makes sense a little bit. Let's see. Months after apples have been harvested, right?
Yeah.
Now if we go to B, producers are allowed to sell their apples months after they have been harvested in the off season because one MCP when applied to apples, and so this also causes a little uh, disturbance in the flow. It doesn't combine the ideas properly, right?
The option C is the only one.
So
Yeah.
C, no, we haven't said A is not accepted.
Okay.
A is, in fact, A, if you see, when applied to apples, MCP lengthen storage, that is good enough by 3 to 4 times. Allowing producers to sell the apples in the off season is also okay. And months after that information is there, let's see if C improves on it. One MCP strengthens storage life. when applied to apples by 3 or 4 times, allowing producers to sell their apples months after the apples have been harvested in the off season.
Yes.
Now, the first part is okay here, but if you look at the next second part, this is incorrect. Yeah,
Yeah.
allowing producers to sell their apples after the apples have been harvested in the off season. Have they been harvested in the off season?
No.
No, right? That's what it seems to. So there's a little bit of a modifier placement issue over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So then we can eliminate C. We eliminate B. So A is the only one that is left. So in these type of questions, you will be going with the elimination process, not
Yes,
choosing
ma'am.
the answer, but eliminating anything that is wrong in the answer. Any of the options that have something missing or something wrong, eliminate.
Okay, ma'am.
So automatically you will be left with the best answer, right?
Yeah.
So we had a problem with flow, problem with focus, problem with combining ideas.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Now coming to number 9, you should be
Ma'am,
getting this correct.
Option D.
Option D.
D. Yeah.
This one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So why did you go with option D?
Ma'am, because there was, but just joining two lines.
Hmm. Okay, let's see. This may not be much of a problem with certain kinds of apples that are not naturally very fragrant, such as Granny Smith, but for apples they are prized for their fruity fragrance, such as Macintosh. This can be a problem with customers who will reject apples lacking the expected aroma. Now, your underlined portion is only this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you don't have to look at anything that is wrong or right in the rest of the sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, such as Grammy Smith, but for apples that are prized for their fruity fragrance, such as Macintosh. Yeah. Now
Yes,
here,
ma'am.
what are we looking at? Uh, it says with certain kinds of apples that are not naturally very fragrant. So, such as Grammy Smith. So, what is it doing? It is using two commas to separate an example.
Yes, ma'am.
So this may not be much of a problem with certain kinds of apples that are naturally very fragrant, but for apples that are prized for their fruity fragrance.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is just an example separated from the rest of the sentence with the help of commas.
Yes.
But if you go with
So
D,
it would be wrong.
it would be wrong because it doesn't
So
make sense
option
then,
A.
right?
Yeah.
So, like if you read even the next of the sentence, such as Macintosh, so these are also examples. So
Yes,
here
ma'am.
we have an example separated with the help of two commas, which is absolutely correct. So we go with no change.
Yeah.
Any of the other options would make it incorrect,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Okay, now number 10,
Ma'am, option B.
option B.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Now it says take Bartlett pears, comma, for instance, comma, unless they are treated with exactly the right amount of MCT, exactly the right time, they will remain hard. So now what do we have as it is? We have a comma and a comma.
Yes, ma'am.
Now the first comma would be correct,
Yeah. Second
but
comma
the
wouldn't be.
second comma is
In.
not correct. Why?
Yes, ma'am.
It says take Bartlett pears for instance, and what is it doing? It's giving an explanation,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yeah.
So we will use colon. So
Cool.
you're absolutely correct. Okay, number 11,
Ma'am, option B.
option
B.
D.
B. B.
Okay, B.
Yeah.
Huh. B is correct. So
Oh,
why did you go with B?
ma'am, I thought
What
it
is
was
your
the
reason?
ma'am like sentence 4 would be more logical being after the first line.
Hmm. So here we are talking about sentence 4. So first you read what sentence 4 was. But some fruits do not respond as well to one MCP as others do, and some even respond adversely. So it is a contrast that is being set up.
Yes,
Hmm?
ma'am.
So before this, that means there should be something about how some other fruits respond to MCP
Yes, ma'am.
or how they are supposed to respond.
Respond. Yeah.
So now if you look at one, MCP works by limiting the fruit's production. Its chemical does eventually rot. So this is how what MCP does.
Yes.
Yeah. And here's some don't respond. Now if you look at the next sentence, while MCP keeps apples firm and crisp for months,
Crispy.
it also limits their sentence production. So this is another way that MCP works,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So
Yeah.
after one would be the correct answer.
Yes.
Okay, number 12,
Ma'am, option D.
option D. Yeah, so why did you go with option D?
Ma'am, by looking at the graph.
Hmm. So when you look up the graph, it is comparing between the untreated apples and the ones which are treated with MCP,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So now those which were, now it's talking about browning, the percentage of browning.
Yes,
Here
ma'am.
it is apples placed immediately in control atmosphere. Both untreated and MCP were more or less same browning happened.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And if you look at apples placed in control atmosphere after 3 weeks
Three
in
weeks.
open air, the ones which were untreated had less browning, and the ones which had were treated with MCP had more browning,
Yes, ma'am.
right?
Yeah.
So according to that, then number 13, accurate interpretation of the data roughly, it would be, no, we
Ma'am,
were
B.
doing number 12, no? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. B. D.
So sustainably less browning than.
Yes, ma'am.
So roughly 5% less browning than the,
Flash of
uh,
the untreated.
yeah. So not just 5%, but substantially less.
Actually less. Yes.
Right. Okay, number 13,
Ma'am, option B.
option B, which also offers, again, it is an interpretation of data.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
now here it talks about, however, when Empire apples are treated with one MCP, their flesh turns brown when the apples are first stored in the open air, though not under other conditions,
Conditions.
right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you will go with
Ma'am, option B.
B, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So roughly half of the flesh turns brown, regardless of whether the apples are first stored in the open air or not. So
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is what we could figure out from the given data.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, number 14.
Ma'am, I went for option C here.
The writer wants a conclusion how, that conveys how the shortcomings of one CP presented in the passage affect the actions of people in the fruit industry, right?
Yeah.
So you went with
C.
C. Okay, let's see. Now the what is given is the all the researchers continue to search for a right combination of factors that will keep fruits and fish fresh. The problem may be that consumers are overly concerned with superficial qualities rather than the actual freshness of the fruit.
Yes, ma'am.
But here what do we want?
Yeah.
We want how the people in the fruit industry are affected.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, passage affect the actions of people in the food industry. So now we saw that even those which were treated with one MCP browned more. In fact, they browned more than the ones which were not treated.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So
Yeah.
here, if you go with C, it says for many fruit sellers must weigh the relative values of aroma, color, freshness when deciding whether to use MCP. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are the different factors that were, even in the beginning they said these are the different factors that were taken into consideration when seeing the quality of the fruit.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yeah.
So, and if you look at the others, why did you eliminate the others? Many
Ma'am,
of the
those.
improvements of the fruit quality I've discovered so far were required trade-off. That is not an answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Not concerned with the quality of the fruit. It must be acknowledged that one MCP, despite many inadequacies, has enabled food industry to ship and store. So that despite inadequacies has helped. No, they were concerned that they could not store it properly,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So
Yeah.
C would be the only answer, right? Okay, so you got all these answers.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think you did better in this one. How many did you get wrong here?
Ma'am, the first two were wrong. After that, I think
After
everyone.
that, you got all correct, right?
Yes, ma'am. The
So
ones
your
with the graph
reasoning,
were easy.
hmm. So your reasoning answers were correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
why did you get number one wrong?
Here, I do. I think I didn't read the sentence properly. The D one, like
Hmm.
allowed instead of allowing. If I
Yeah.
would
So
have
you
found
didn't
that.
look at the sentence in its entirety.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
anyway, when you have a but, usually it would have a comma before it,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Even if you look at the clauses, in this case, you didn't look at the punctuation, then what was the purpose of it?
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you get you got 10 wrong or you got 11 wrong?
Ma'am, nine wrong.
You got number 9 wrong
Yes, ma'am.
and
Number eight wrong.
number 8 wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in number 8, you were, I think, trying to combine it together and then putting in. So you forgot to look at the flaws in the sentences given to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So all you have to do is eliminate anything that is wrong.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. When you eliminate anything that is wrong, you will automatically get to the one that is correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now you know how to do these.
Yes, ma'am.
And okay, now what you will do is there are okay. Now there is one more passage in this one,
Yes, ma'am.
in this exercise. Now there are again 7 questions. Now you know that about 7 questions you can do in about 5 minutes. Hmm?
Maybe, ma'am, I will try doing
You
it.
can try.
Yes, ma'am.
So about 5 or maximum 5.5 minutes you because you were completing in less than 6 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
About maximum 6 minutes you took. So
Okay.
you can time yourself a little about 5 minutes or 5.5 minutes and complete this one.
Yes, ma'am.
And then so for homework, this passage, your pending passage from session 12
Yeah.
and now this entire session 14,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Now in session 14, I'll just instead of scrolling, you can look at your book, you can mark it from there. Now session
Yes, ma'am.
14, again you have 7 questions per passage.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is where you are just practicing your timing and accuracy,
Okay, ma'am.
right?
Yeah.
So session 14, you do all the passages.
Ma'am, but I did already read it with Joseph, sir. Session 14 already done.
Session
He,
14 you've done.
yes, ma'am. He told this was the first passage which I did for practice. He said, we will
Okay.
do this one.
Okay, fine. So you finished session 14. Fine, no problem. So then you can do session 50. So in this one, you had got the questions correct?
Yes, ma'am, I got it.
Hmm?
Yeah,
And you
on
know where
14.
you went wrong?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Then. Okay, so then what you can do is get to session 15.
Yes, ma'am.
Now in session 15, you have one, two,
Ma'am, two, I think, two para.
two,
Yeah,
three passages.
1 to 11 and 12 to
Yeah,
23.
there are 11 questions. So you will be getting 11 questions in your exam.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So 11 questions. Now, what is the timing you will do for each passage?
Ma'am, I think 10 minutes. 10.
Mm, not 10 minutes. So
Okay.
when we calculated how many minutes for each passage did we get to?
Ma'am, 6. Like 7 for
Six
7
and a
questions.
half to 7,
Yeah.
maximum 7. So in this one, the first passage you will mark yourself for 7 minutes,
Okay.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? 7 minutes or say 7.5 minutes for the first passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
7 minutes for the second passage. 6.5 minutes for third passage.
Okay, ma'am.
So you do one passage at a time. You will not do all three together. You will do
Yes,
one
ma'am.
passage at a time. Do all the answers. See your timing. Don't look at the answers straight away.
Yes, ma'am.
Finish the entire session. Then there are the answers given at the back. You can go to the answers and see
Oh,
how many you got wrong,
okay, ma'am.
right? And you also analyze why you got wrong. Write it down.
Okay, ma'am.
So when I meet you next week, you will tell me why you got your answer wrong.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you have one passage from session 13, one passage from session 12 pending,
Yes, ma'am.
and this session 15 to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And your practice, this homework you have to do because next session will be probably our last session together.
Oh, okay,
After
ma'am.
that, you'll be having, okay, now tell me another thing. How many class tests have you done?
How many?
Have you done all of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Finished with your class tests? Or
No,
there's
ma'am.
some left?
Two tests are pending, mostly of maths. Two maths tests are pending at the moment.
And WL, you finished your class tests?
Yes, ma'am.
You've done all of them.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you fare in the class test?
Ma'am, it wasn't good. Like out of 35 marks, I was getting like 16, 18, or 14, like that.
Okay, that's okay because you hadn't completed the portion and you did the class test,
Yeah. And
right?
in the grammar one also there. So like in the grammar one, I was doing like 30 and 34, like something like that in that
Okay.
range.
Hmm. Okay, fine
Yes.
then. So now you will do 15, time
Yes, ma'am.
yourself, see how many you get correct.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
in our next session, I will discuss this and we will do some more exercises.
Okay,
And then
ma'am.
after that, you will do the rest of the sessions. That is your practice, right?
Okay, ma'am. Oh,
So
practice time. Yeah.
those will be entirely for your practice.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So your timing and accuracy both have to improve with each passage,
Okay, ma'am.
right?
So, ma'am, like if there would be any doubts, then like how?
Yeah, we will have doubt solving sessions later on again,
Okay, ma'am.
right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
like doing the sessions, the next session will be, we will be doing it together. And then
Yeah.
after that, you will be doing the practice sessions.
Yeah.
And any doubt you have, you can message me. You got my
Okay.
phone number,
Yeah, I got it for
right?
WhatsApp. Yeah.
So you've got my phone number. You can WhatsApp me that I have a doubt in this session, this question.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. And then we
Yeah.
can talk. We can discuss anytime. And then you will be taking your mocks and we will be doing doubt solving for the mocks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 mocks you will do, we'll do doubt solving. Then we will see how you improve after that on the other mocks.
Okay, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
And yes, you have to do your homework.
Yeah.
And this you can't do over 2-3 days.
Yes, ma'am.
You will sit down at one go, 1 hour in hand you have, do it, Analyze your answers, write down why you get it wrong.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this you will finish off. Maybe the session 13 and session 12 passage that you have done, that you could do on different days.
Yeah.
But session 15, the entire session together you will do.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And three passages will not take more than say about 24 minutes.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah,
Just
22 minutes in fact.
yes,
If you
ma'am.
take 7 minutes
It
maximum
should be
on an
21.
average, 21 minutes. So
Yeah.
20 minutes including your fill, it should be 20 minutes including your writing down the answers
Yes, ma'am.
and then going back to see where you got, where, which answer you had doubt of.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay then. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So next session, yeah, we'll see. I think most probably we'll do it on Zoom only. It's more
Yeah.
convenient.